Hello, Billy here. Today I want to talk about one of the apps that I built, which is a Great Gatsby visual novel where I use generative AI to help with the art and some of the more repetitive tasks of data cleaning. So a little bit about myself before we get into that. I'm a data scientist who's been coding for over 10 years at this point, and I've been using generative AI in a big way for about 2 years now. And I wanted to start documenting my experiences with how I've been using generative AI for various tasks, including things like developing iPhone apps. So I built the Great Gatsby app last year. So I did it for a couple of reasons. One, The Great Gatsby is one of my favorite books, so I wanted to take this chance to reread The Great Gatsby. And the other big reason is I wanted to try doing a couple of different things when it comes to using generative AI tools. And this was before I really discovered and started utilizing a tool like Claude Code. So this was more of a first step in my earlier journey with generative AI usage. The way that I built out the app was essentially I got the book, which is in the public domain at this point. I then took the book text and had to clean it. So I cleaned it using a local LLM model on my desktop computer where I converted the format that it was in and reformatted it in a way that would work well with how I built the visual novel. I used Ren'Py as the backbone for this app. Ren'Py is basically a Python front end that still requires a lot of Python coding, but it also provides the means of quickly exporting your project into an iPhone app. So I use that to build the app, essentially. The big thing that generative AI did was the data cleaning, was converting the text into a readable, usable format for Ren'Py. But the other aspect where I used generative AI was where I used Midjourney to develop the images for different moments. That required a lot of tinkering and just prompt engineering of trying to get the exact look that I was looking for. And part of that, in Midjourney, what you can do is you can, once you select your prompt and the Midjourney generates images for you, the user can circle or target certain parts of the image that the user would like to see variations on. And that keeps the human in the loop and helps to make the final product a higher quality. So it doesn't replace the user in some respects. It does make the generation of these images quicker than if a human had to do it all by hand. However, it does still require human input of altering and editing and more like supervising the creation of the image. So basically, the parts where generative AI were used was the creation and formatting of the actual text. So it was just reformatting things, basically data cleaning, and then the generation of the images. Where I was involved was making everything work together. That basically meant that I had to state in Ren'Py when the images were going to be displayed. So there was still a lot of human decision making happening in the Ren'Py visual novel for The Great Gatsby. The other aspect where generative AI was really helpful was generating the description for the App Store, making sure that I was using the right keywords for search optimization, etc. So it was a lot of these other aspects where you might go to another service, pay that service money for better search optimization results. Instead, I just used my local large language models to state good first approximations for optimizing for search. But basically, in this project, it was more like being a manager. There were still a lot of decisions that I had to make and approve or disapprove, but I was more like guiding and managing the generative AI to make certain decisions, but then I was still heavily involved in putting everything together, making sure it all worked, and going through the app approval process. So it was much more collaborative and much more like a tool in my toolkit that I was utilizing to help get this app through and approved in the App Store. I'd love to hear from folks and hear if you've used Ren'Py before, or if you use generative AI to help with certain tasks in your workflow that you used to do all completely manually. Feel free to reach out and let me know some of the ways that things have changed, or are you not using generative AI? I'd love to hear your perspective as well.